Wanted to talk about this tool today. This is a tool I got, I believe it was from Chefware Kits. I've had this for a few years. I've used it a few times. But what it is, you will mount this on your lathe and you'll mount a cutter into your headstock, and you can actually mount your piece of wood here and you can turn it and you can actually cut threads into your pieces of wood. That way you can thread pieces of wood together. Works really good for lidded boxes or cremation urns. I've used it a few times. I haven't mastered it yet. I'm still trying to figure out all the little tricks with it. But I thought I'd show you how this works and how I use it, and a few little tips. Maybe it might help you out if you decide to get something like this. I got the piece mounted up that I'm going to thread. I'm wanting to get a diameter of somewhere around 2 1/8. It doesn't have to be exact. And then I'm going to turn this bottom section into the part that's actually going to be threaded. So let's get this kind of rough to size, and then I'll show you how that threader works. I've got this pretty close to size. It's a little bit oversized right now, but once I get the threads cut and get it mounted again, I can finish turning it down to size. Just going to kind of get the bottom part that I'm going to cut the threads in, get that kind of down to the diameter I need, and then we will start cutting some threads. All right, I will get everything mounted up to start cutting the threads. Got this to the rough size that I want. It's a little oversized, but like I said, I haven't used this jig that much. I mean, I've used it some. Got this a little bit oversized than what I was actually aiming for, but I'd rather have it a little bigger than too small. So like I said, I've not used this jig that much. I've used it a few times, still working on mastering it, but we'll get this swapped around and get the cutter in there and get ready to start cutting some threads. Here's an up-close look at the tool. This is where you'll mount your wood that you're wanting to cut the threads into. It's got a stop collar here. I've already got this adjusted, so when I put it in my banjo, it'll be exactly centered on my lathe. Now, when you're cutting your threads, you want your threads to be straight in your piece. You don't want them to be at an angle either way. And when you're cutting your threads, you do have to sneak up on the cut, so you have to maneuver this tool kind of back and forth. I'm going to show you my method where I can keep this tool squared to the bedways, and that way if I have to maneuver it around any, I can always get it squared back up, and I'm not going to have to worry about my threads being cut at a different angle. So right now I've got everything loose on here where this will pivot. My banjo will pivot. What I want to do is kind of get this to where it's centered on the cutter. You don't want to mash real hard into the cutter because that is carbide teeth there. You don't want to break any of the carbide teeth off. Now this has, the end of this has a little dimple in it. So I just push my tailstock up to it and it'll automatically center itself. And I just kind of got to make sure I got this edge pretty centered. Then I just take a speed square. I'll mash it up against the bed of my lathe, and then I just square up my banjo to that, and then I lock everything in place, like this in place. I want to make sure it's good and tight. Now I'm done with the tailstock. Now, any way I move this, I can automatically square it up with my lathe each time. I just don't want to loosen this at all, and I can square this up every time. Now this is one reason why I like to use these homemade glue blocks. They're a lot lighter as opposed to if you had this on a chuck. Faceplate wouldn't be so bad, but if you had this on a chuck and you try to mount this, it's just a little awkward, a little heavy to kind of mount. But I can just spin this onto my jig here. We'll get ready to start cutting some threads. We'll make sure all the dirt is away. We'll go ahead and lock this in. Now this also has an adjustment here to where I can move it in and out. I think I might have found a new way of threading this. I kind of like that, just shoving it with my hand. But there you can see, started cutting my threads. I'm going to do a little test fit. I know it's not going to fit yet, but yeah, still a little ways to go. Now, I've already moved this, but I want to slide this back around till where I'm touching that cutter. And then I'll lock it in place again. Now I'll get this take this the rest of the way back to where I'm not touching the cutter. Loosen this and go in just a little bit. You just want to do a little bit at a time. Do a little check again, because I don't want to get this too small. Yep, we're not there yet. And I'm only doing about a quarter. I usually put my thumb on the side and do about a quarter of a turn each time. If I feel like I'm starting to get real close to the threads, I will maybe do an eighth of a turn just to kind of make sure I don't go over what I need. But I'm getting a pretty clean cut right now, so. All right, I think we're there. Now that I got the threads cut in this, I want to push this back up to where it's up against the cutter and lock it in place. So that way, when I mount my urn onto it, I can use the square again, and no matter what, because I'm going to have to move this now out to take this off. Now I can get this spun around. When I need to re-square it up, I can just use my speed square, and I can lock it in place again. That way, this is always going to be cut and true. Now what I've done, I've got the cutter to where it's just barely touching on the inside of the urn. Now I've got everything squared back up, and I can start cutting the threads in this piece now. I'm going to back this up so I know the cutter's not touching when I start it up. All right, we got our threads cut. You see there's a little bit of a gap there. I just got to take a parting tool. Because this cutter, when I'm cutting the threads, it butts up against the lip here. So I just need to take a parting tool and make a little notch there. Then that way it'll seat all the way down on my urn.